gas is just as fascinating as any other piece of law. Today, Joshua Swain tells us about his practice that was born in East Texas. Welcome back to the Revenue Roadmap, the podcast designed to help family law firms grow their firm, institute best practices, and become great leaders. My name is Tyler Dolph. I am the CEO of Rocket Clicks, a hyper-focused digital marketing firm that works exclusively with family law firms across the country. We also own and operate our own family law firm called Sterling Lawyers that has 25 offices across Wisconsin and Illinois. Today, I am interviewing Joshua Swain of Coughlin and Crowson, a oil and gas law firm based in East Texas that has been around for a very long time. They started kind of in oil and gas and energy and now have evolved into more estate planning and business law. Josh's journey is amazing. He started at the firm and became a partner. His evolution and the way the firm still focuses on the founding members' values is a great session. I really hope you enjoy it. Josh, appreciate you taking some time with us. Would love to have you introduce yourself, introduce your firm. You are in beautiful Texas. We're in cold Milwaukee. So give us some perspective on where you're at and a little bit about your firm.
Sure. So our firm's in East Texas, in Longview specifically. And so we're right in that belt of Texas where we get really cold, damp weather that it is like bone chilling. But we don't ever get snow. We don't ever get ice. It's just cold, just bitter cold. It's just, there's nothing fun about it. You don't get to play outside it. It's just wet, damp, cold. But no, it's great. There's a ton of pine trees, and the spring is beautiful here. Fall is spectacular. So it's a great place to live. So my name is Joshua Swain. I am a partner at the Coughlin Crowson law firm. Our firm has been in Longview for about 60 years. We've been here a long time, one of the oldest in our city, and I've been a partner here for 7 or 8 years, and been associated with the firm for about 13. So I've been here a good long while. My background is in East Texas. I was raised here, and went to college here, left for a little while, went to school in the Metroplex, finished up law school, and then came back here following jobs. So that's where I'm at. Our firm carries its name from our original founding partners, Howard Coughlin and David Crowson, who were, and I'm sure you guys have these in your own communities. They were pillars of the community. I mean, it's like everybody knew who they were. Everybody wanted to know them. And so our firm has tried to carry on that legacy that they started for, decades ago. And so far we've been pretty successful with it.
That's incredible. And did it start as a general practice firm, or what? Tell us about your specialties now.
Yeah. So one thing that we've held on to, while we do more than what we started out with, Howard Coughlin, who started our firm, was considered by many to be the preeminent energy and oil and gas lawyer in the country in the 60s and 70s. And so if you look at opinions dealing with everything from the EPA and its origins to prominent oil and gas cases in Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, you'll see his name sprinkled in there, whether it's because he was a part of the case or because he was a special advisor to the government. And if you can dig up the records even of when the government was exploring they were mining for uranium out in the kind of the Midwest and in the western parts of the country, you'll see his name sprinkled in there. He was a special advisor on a number of occasions, just helping the federal government and state governments navigate mineral ownership. So our backbone really started with oil, gas, and energy. And then kind of the natural outworkings of that, natural growth patterns took us into estate planning, property and real estate, and then business and kind of the transactional side of that. And so on both sides of that equation, in those areas, we do transactional work, which is all of what I do. And then we also do commercial litigation on all of those individual components as well.
Love it. And across the state of Texas, or is there a target market specifically that you're focused on?
So we only have one location in East Texas. Now, by virtue of technology, we have the privilege of working with clients that are based down in the Permian Basin, up in the Metroplex, down in the Houston area. So we get to work with a number of companies that are located outside of East Texas. But I would say probably still 50% of our client base still is in the East Texas, in the deep East Texas area. It's interesting how, and I think it's a product of the firm's generational heritage, is that if you know what you're looking for, you can find our website. If you know a lawyer that works here, you can find our website. But if you're looking for social media posts from, it's really, they're absent, because we've still held on to this type of nostalgic word of mouth, local lawyer, come and drop by, have coffee with us, that kind of feel, which is great. I'm the youngest professional, staff and lawyers in the firm. So for me, it's been eye-opening, I guess, in some respects, to get to work with a generation that still sees so much value in that kind of one-to-one personal contact.
That's so funny you say that. So our listeners know we run a digital advertising agency focused on law firms, and we talk to a lot of law firms all the time. And to me, it's comical how the art of like the personal touch and the human connection has been lost.
Sure.
It's so meaningful still, like even over video or having coffee in person or whatever it is, like people still just want to work with people, right?
Yeah.
And that's all we're doing at the end of the day. We're just trying to work.
Right. You provide a service and you try to add value to a situation. And so I think you're right, is that, a firm that can learn how to mix those two, maintain a level of personal touch and a personality with their clients, but also use the skills and use the tools available to reach a broader audience, which is, giving more people access to quality legal services is, I think, another tenet of what the profession should really focus on.
Totally agree. That's awesome. Josh, if I could, I want to take you back to your younger days when you started out in law, maybe after law school. Give us some perspective on what your mindset was leaving law school. Did you want to start your own firm? Did you want to go work at a big firm? Give us a little history lesson there.
Sure. So when I was in law school, my second year in school in Texas, we have to take an oil and gas class because it's part of our bar exam. And so when I took that class that was kind of built on our general property law class, I was just fascinated by the concepts of how Texas had become this pivotal area within the entire world on oil production and gas production, and how that affects economics, and how it influences and affects politics. And so conceptually, I was drawn to that type of practice, and that combined with the fact that I both mine and my wife's families are from East Texas, so we really did want to be back here. It was a good fit. There a lot of that work to be had, a lot of activity still going on at that time, which I got out of law school in the winter of '07. And so if you're familiar at all with the terms Haynesville Shale or horizontal drilling or fracking, all of those terms became well known in '08 and '09. And so I walked back into East Texas when there was a lot of activity. So it was a lot of work to do. Some of the best advice I got from an older lawyer was, before you can give anybody advice on what they should do, why don't you go do it a little bit for yourself? And so I spent 2 years working in the field as a land manager, having to be out negotiating everything from leases to rights of way to documents, and then that allowed me to get into kind of the more transactional side of the energy industry. And so that's still some of the best advice I'd gotten. And what I would give to a young lawyer is, you're going to have a chance to really speak into situations and change and influence people's trajectories from their families and their businesses. And so if you can, spend some time learning it in a firsthand way, so that you can appreciate exactly what you're telling people to do and how you're advising people. And so when I got out of law school, that's the first place I looked, was back in East Texas, and got a job for a company that was based in Marshall at the time, and spent 2 years just working in the field, meeting all kinds of people, landowners, all the way from North Louisiana all the way into deep East Texas, and getting a chance to not spend the first couple of years of my legal career, sitting behind a desk. And so I was extremely fortunate in that regard.
That's amazing. And was it as exciting as Landman, with Billy Bob Thornton?
There was the language wasn't quite as foul. There wasn't quite as many explosions. But so no, maybe if I had gotten a chance to work with Billy Bob at the time out in the field, it might have been more exciting. But generally, no. I had the experiences are very, very wide. I remember having conversations with people in their living rooms, in homes that were, worth more than my home and my parents' home and their parents' home and everything else combined. And I remember sitting in trailers, watching roaches crawl up the wall. So it was a really good learning experience for a young lawyer who might have been both out over his skis a little bit, and also maybe a little bit prideful and arrogant about what was hanging on my wall.
Never. That Josh, that's such an interesting experience to have, and what great advice, like you mentioned, to create a level of context to the work that you're doing every day and the people it affects and everything involved. That's amazing. Who gave you that piece of advice?
So I had a chance to sit down with, he's on his way to retirement now, but he was the family office attorney for a very wealthy family here in the area. And I just happened to have a connection to him through my stepdad. And so I sat down with him, and I'm a semester from graduating law school, and kind of that same feeling of, okay, do I get a job? Do I go out on my own? Kind of realizing that, law school doesn't teach you a lot about business. So, you're trying to fill in the gaps. And so one of the questions I asked, I said, what advice would you have for me if I want to work in the energy industry as a lawyer? And he said, look, and I knew what I wanted to do. And he said, before you do that, you need to go out and get some practical experience. You're going to be advising individuals, property owners, landowners, companies you're going to be telling them what to do, and they're going to rely on you. But before you do that, you need to go out and actually understand the real world implications of the advice that you're going to give, how it's going to change somebody's family, how it's going to change somebody's life, how it's going to change somebody's land that they've held on to for 6 generations in their family and can date back all the way to the 1860s. You're going to need to understand and appreciate the kind of changes that you're going to have a hand in making, both positive and negative.
Wow, it's heavy. Without that experience, you probably wouldn't be able to relate.
No, and I'm thinking, this guy's fixing to tell me, hey, do this and you're going to make $1 million. And he says, no, you need to go understand what you're fixing to do, because what you're going to do is going to change the lives of people positively and negatively. And so that was a great piece of advice for me, because I had a chance to go out and actually do field work and meet people that my practice never would have come in contact with. On one hand, it was the experience of practically learning how to converse with people when there's such a wide disparity in knowledge. But two, and this was really more related to that the Haynesville shale explosion, when seeing somebody, 2 generations, 3 generations of people sitting in a trailer and handing them a check that is $250,000, and knowing that has forever changed the trajectory of their entire family, knowing that you've done that for somebody. Or been a part of that. It's eye-opening to the extent that it really does. It allowed me to appreciate in a deeper sense the fact that when you do legal work, whether it's family law, whether it's estate planning, whether it's litigation, PI, or no matter what you do, what you end up doing and accomplishing for your clients makes real world lasting changes. And sometimes those ripples carry on for generations. And that was a lesson that I could not have understood unless I had been on that side of the equation.
It's amazing. Thankful that you were able to have that experience and do the work that you do. As I mentioned to you before the podcast started, our listeners are young attorneys and they're looking to make that first move. Talk to us about what advice you'd give them as they're thinking about going into the workforce and maybe starting their own firm or joining a large firm. I think one specific one, obviously, is learn from people who have done it. Ask for good advice.
Ask questions. I mean, that's I think there's this undercurrent in law schools that you're typically there with bright students. You're typically there with accomplished individuals, whether they're straight out of undergrad or whether it's kind of out of a couple years and back into it. You're typically there with very accomplished individuals, and there's this undercurrent, at least in my experience, this undercurrent of everybody's smart, everybody belongs here. And there's this sense of pride that kind of it has its genesis there. And at least in my experience was, nobody else is asking questions. You should be smart enough to figure this out on your own. You really do. You really should. You should have this bull by the tail already. And so the advice I would give to a young lawyer is find people who have done it and done it well. Have conversations with them. Find, the catchphrase now is find a mentor. And I think that's absolutely true. Find somebody who can coach you and tell you how to do things really, really well and can work through challenging questions with you about whether it's, do I start my own practice? Do I hang my own shingle? Do I join a large firm? What does that mean? How does that affect my family? How is that going to look like 5 years from now after I'm knee deep in this thing and a change is much harder? Having somebody to bounce those ideas off of in a way that can foster that sense of continuity and honesty is, I think, incredible. I think it's really important. And I think it's really important what you guys are doing, what you put together here, because not everybody has the chance to do that stuff one-on-one, whether it's because of their personality or opportunity. Having a forum where you can tie into and get real world practical advice on how to practice law, yes, but how to fold legal practice into your life overall and how that works and what that looks like and the rewards you get and how you are able to influence things around you in your community. I think it's wonderful that you guys are putting this together. And from what I've watched of the other interviews, you guys have had some spectacular people on here. And I mean, truly, guys, this is really quite a thrill for me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. But young lawyers getting tied into forums and opportunities like this where they can learn in a very practical way and pick up nuggets that they can put into action that very same day, I think it's a critical part of maintaining and advancing the health of the legal industry in general.
Amazing. Josh, thank you so much for your time today. It really means a lot that you're here and able to share your story. What a great one. Just doubling down on your story as it relates to getting real world experience in the space that you're actually going to practice in to gain context and perspective was such a golden nugget. And I'm going to hold on to that one for a long time. So again, appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure, guys. Yeah, truly.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next time on Revenue Roadmap. If you enjoyed this interview, you can continue down our interview series where next week we talk to the law firm, the Pacific Northwest Family Law Firm. Make sure to check it out here because it's one you are not going to want to miss.